Hello everybody, I am the Single Shot Gamer, and in this video tutorial series, I am going to show you step by step on how to make your very own Sonic game. Oh, and if you haven't noticed, that's not Sonic 2, that's my own recreation of Sonic 2. So hopefully by the end of this series, you'll all end up with your own version of this. For this series, I'm going to be using GameMaker Studio 2. Most of this should also work in Studio 1 as well. I will do my best to explain everything, but some coding can get rather complex. I recommend at least an intermediate knowledge of GameMaker programming to get the most out of this series. But if you follow step by step, you should be able to recreate what I show you. Also, before I begin, special thanks to Sonic Retro for its detailed Sonic physics page, where most of my info comes from, and Sprites Research for most of the graphics I used in the game. Well, now that that's settled, let's begin. So for today's tutorial, we will be building the bare bones groundwork for everything. Every video after this will be adding or revising what we do here today. So the first thing we want to do is create a couple of sprites. The first one we will call SPR wall. And this would just be a dark gray block representing collision. We're going to set the origin to the top left. And the second sprite we will call SPR underscore play or underscore test. This will be a blue ball standing in for the player. We'll leave the origin centered for now. Now we want to go down to objects and create a group. We'll call this collision masters. And in this group, we'll create an object called obj walls. This will be our master collision object, and we will use it for all questions regarding collision. Now, outside the folder, we will make two more objects. The first one will be called obj underscore player. Our player object. Let's drag the sprite down for it. And the second one we will call obj underscore block. This will be our first in our long line of collision objects. Don't forget to set the parent. Now let's go to our player object and add a create event. We're going to be using this to lay down some variables that we're going to be using a lot. First thing we want to do is create two variables, HSP and VSP. And we'll just set both of these to 0. These are going to represent our horizontal and vertical speeds. Now, let's make a couple more variables called HSPL and VSPL. Set these both to 16. These are going to be representing our horizontal and vertical speed limits. Now, Sonic games are momentum-based platformers, so Sonic will slowly gain speed and lose speed. For this, we're going to need two more variables. The first one we'll call ACC, and we're going to set ACC equal to 0.046875. And the second one we'll call DCC, and we're going to have that equal to 0.5. ACC stands for acceleration and DCC will stand for deceleration, or how fast Sonic can gain or lose speed. Next we're going to need another variable. We'll call this FRC, or frick, for friction. This is how much speed Sonic will lose when he's not in motion. We're going to set this one to 0.046875, same as acceleration. Now we're going to make another variable called groove, GRV, or gravity for short. This is how fast Sonic will fall while he's in the air. We're going to set this to 0.21875. And last, we're going to need one more variable. We'll call this ground. And we're going to set this to false. This will tell us if Sonic is on the ground or in the air. Now that that's all done, we can close out of all this. Next, we're going to want to go over the scripts. Right click and create a script, and we're going to call this p_physics. This script will handle all of the physics, or how the player interacts with solid objects around him. The reason I'm using a script instead of adding it directly to a step event is so I can quickly reuse this for other objects. And it keeps the code nice and neatly isolated from the rest of the player scripts. So the first thing we're going to do is create the speed limits that the player can act within, to prevent him from gaining too much speed and breaking the game. First thing we're going to do is if HSP is less than or greater than HSPL, HSP equals HSPL. This says that if a horizontal speed is greater than the limit, it will become equal to it, so it can never go over. Next, we're going to do if HSP is less than negative HSPL, HSP equals negative HSPL. This does the same but in the opposite direction. And now, if VSP is greater than VSPL, VSP equals VSPL. This makes it so the player can never fall faster than the limit. Basically, it's going to be our terminal velocity. And yet again, if VSP is less than negative VHPL, VSP equals VSPL. Again, the same but in the opposite direction. Now that we have limits, we need to have our player move with his speed. To do this, we are going to use for statements. If you don't know what that is, let me explain. The first thing a for statement would do is run the for statement, or this, setting I equal to 0. After that, it will ask the question, or this. And then after it asks the question, if the question is a true statement and 0 is in fact less than 10, it will run an expression. Or in other words, whatever in between these two brackets. And after that, it runs the next statement. So after the second statement, it asks the previous question again. Now, I is equal to 1. but 1 is still less than 10, so run the expression again, and then run the second statement again, and continue this until the question is no longer true, until I is not less than 10. This will specifically run it 10 times. Okay, back on topic. So, first we ask if our horizontal speed is greater than 0. That we are not still but moving right. Then we have our full statement. I equals 0. I less than HSP. I plus equal 1. X plus equal 1. This will make the code repeat, moving us right 1 pixel of a horizontal speed. Now the reason we're using a full statement in place of a repeat statement for this is for this. So if we come into collision with a wall before we move our full speed, we will stop. The collision circle expression makes a small invisible circle that we tell it to, and if that circle comes in contact with a wall, it will tell us. So as long as the circle is not colliding, the statement will run as normal, thanks to this exclamation point which tells if this statement is not true. Now we just go to repeating this, but for the other direction, making the horizontal speed less and changing some of those pluses to negative. Now we're going to do the same, but this time along the vertical axis, going up and down. So, if this will let the player move down. Instead of tying the plus 16 to the X, we tie it to the Y, as well as adding the Y for the movement. And this will let the player move up. Now, even though we set up a single pixel movement, it's not pixel perfect, so we need a correction script. What a Y statement does is, as long as it is true, it will keep running the expression without letting the game advance. So be careful, it's easy to freeze your game up if you make a statement that's always true. This statement will move a player left if he is in fact colliding with a wall to his right. So if he's inside of a wall on his right, he'll move left out of it. And this will move the player outside the wall if he is colliding with it on his left. Now we need some scripts that sticks the players to the ground if he's touching it. So, if ESP This will make it so that if you're falling or at 0 velocity and the ground is below you, you will snap to it, killing all vertical speed. And change the ground to true so that the statement doesn't loop. Plus, it's easier to check if you're on the ground by using a variable than asking a series of questions every time. Just a little quicker. So, and this makes it so that if you're not touching the ground, but you're still in ground mode, it fixes itself and says you're not. And last, we need gravity, so the player just doesn't float like he's in outer space or something. It's actually pretty simple. Nope. So as long as you're not on the ground, your vertical speed has its gravitational force added to it to pull you down the ground. And this is it for physics. We'll be adding more to this in a later video, but for now, we have the ground walks. Next we want to go to the player, go to step event, add it, and then add key physics to a script. This will cause the physics code to run once every frame to the player. Now, let's quickly throw a room together and test this out. So, make a simple ground, couple of walls for later, and a little uneven ground. And we'll add the player in. So let's run it and see how it walks. Whoa, looks like he's falling like he's supposed to. Now that the player is interacting with the world like we want him to, we need to add a way to control him. So next, we're going to go to scripts and create a new one, and we're going to call this p_move, or player movement. First up, we're going to make a few shortcuts. This way, we can type out a shorter phrase instead of a long one every time we check for these. Plus, as a bonus, if at any point we want to change the key bindings, all we need to change is one line of code. This is where we will have the player's movement code. First, we ask if the right key is being pressed. Then, now we ask if the player's horizontal speed is greater than 0 or equal to it. And if it is, then we add the player's acceleration to it as normal. But if his horizontal speed is not greater or equal to 0, due to the fact that he's currently moving left or has left momentum, we'll have him decelerate to 0, and then we'll have him gain speed going left as normal. Stop that game. Gosh, that's not even a variable. Now we repeat for the left, but reversing our numbers around. Now we need a way for the player to slow down if we're not currently controlling him. So we ask if key right and key left are not being held. So if the player is moving right, or the player horizontal speed is greater than 0. Then we subtract his speed by his friction to slow him down. We do the same for the left, adding his friction to slow him down. Now, if you haven't noticed, Sonic's horizontal speed is 0 when he's standing still, a positive number when he's moving right, and a negative number when he's moving left. So with that in mind, we make it so if his horizontal speed is less or equal to his friction, and if it's also greater or equal to negative friction, then his horizontal speed will be reduced to 0. If we didn't do this, he'll just slide forever. He'll never reach absolute 0. Now, last but not least, we're going to make this hedgehog jump. So, if A and ground. So, if the player is on the ground and the 8 key is being pressed, we will detach the player from the ground and set his vertical speed to -6, making him fly upwards until gravity pulls him inevitably back down to the ground. Okay then, so now that we're done with P move, let's add it to the player step event and test the game back out. Well, he's moving about how we want him to. And that's it for this video. It's already a little too long as it is. So, next time we'll be adding 360-degree movement. The one Sonic's known for, the loop-de-loops and stuff. And I'll also be explaining the best I can, all you'll need to understand how it works. So until next time, this is the Single Shot Gamer signing out. Thank you all for watching, and peace out.